what I was just saying to Taylor is that there are sort of two questions that we could be talking about, but one of them is bigger, which is like, what, now that async await is stable, it's a good time to sit back and look at the whole async IO effort and figure out how do we want to structure it, what should our priorities be. I don't really want to do that in this meeting, though I had some thoughts about how, among other things, I don't think we have enough people to really do that, nor is it like a one meeting thing necessarily. But I got like votes here at a minimum. But what I would like to do is to look over the list of bugs and deferred issues, or figure out, I guess, try to think about, we'll look at the deferred issues and figure out what should be our priorities over the next 10 weeks. And also, how are we going to like track and categorize issues going forward for more long-term maintenance and less pull out the deliverable mode. Sound reasonable? I'm going to share the screen. I'm also going to turn off my notifications, although I think they wouldn't show up anymore. I can remember how something do not disturb mode. It has a different name in Windows. Focus mode, I think. Ah, well, I'm going to think that it's fine, because I can't find it right now. So, okay, what I have here, well, actually, first of all, the upcoming dates. So we have, currently we're on nightly, 139, November 7th is the actual release date, but I guess the relevant date for us, September 26th, is like when the beta branches that carries async await, right? So, and it seems worth talking about what can we try to do before then, which will affect users' first impression of async await, like when it hits stable. And then maybe there's some things we want to prioritize before that. Among other things, obviously, backwards compatibility, bug fixes and things, but hopefully we don't have many of those. And then afterwards, I guess. Not really the last chance, I guess, because we can backport, but I don't want to plan on that. So the list of deferred issues is here. Everything labeled async await deferred, I guess, pretty much. And I don't know. I guess what we can do is just start walking through the issues one by one. It's kind of what we did way back when, Taylor, when we started this up. And then see what we think, and maybe some categories start to emerge. My one proposal is that before the beta, my main thought is obviously back compat makes sense, but also
diagnostics.
Yeah, diagnostics, and sort of we're shooting for like maximum gain for minimal effort, essentially. Not like long-term things that would be good to fix and will have a huge impact, but like short-term things that can have as big an impact as possible. And shorter-term fixes. Also, that gives us some time to like recover, which is always good.
I mean, I can already say what
the
biggest short fix would be.
Go ahead.
Or shortish, right? The one that we kept back, which is the whole like return type is backwards thing.
There's an issue on this, right? Do you mean the coercion thing or something else?
No. Well, I mean, it's sort of, I mean, it is maybe the same issue as the coercion thing, and that a fix to the coercion thing might also fix it by correctly, stating what the return type is of the output type of the async block is supposed to be.
Is there an issue for it? I actually have a thought on what I think
there is an issue.
Okay, well, maybe we'll come across it then. But okay, so something return.
It's like the fifth thing on this list.
Okay, let's come to it then. Maybe it's interesting just to state out what we have as preconceptions. My preconception is the thing I hear a lot about is the bug where we over approximate what crosses in a wait line.
Or send and sync.
Yeah, particularly like for mutex guards and send and sync, and particularly the fact that drop foo doesn't matter basically.
Yeah, so this one's interesting in that I don't ever hit this. And the reason I don't ever hit this is because I write sync code that's always sync a lot of the time, or I write non-send and sync code that's always non-send and sync.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, I feel like the main thing that's happening here is that people are using stood lock or stood mutex, right, with futures code, which is something that like we should just tell people not to do. Because it's like...
Okay, that's interesting. It would be better off using
there are a bunch of reasons
comes with your runtime, basically. But if you're going to use a mutex at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you probably don't want your thread to block. I mean, so that's interesting, and that may suggest they, like, rather than trying to fix this, maybe there's a addition to the book or something that can be done instead.
Yeah.
Sort of a.
There is a chapter on shared state that has a to-do like all the other ones.
Okay. Yeah. All right, well, let's look at the list and we'll go from there. Unless, Yash, do you have a pet thing you'd like to mention? Okay. All right, so first one, resolve unsound interaction between self-referential generators and no alias. I think this pretty clearly is not something on the very short-term list.
Yeah.
In terms of how to tag it, I guess I would categorize this as, I don't know what, UCG or something. There's,
yeah.
We'll call it that for now. Unsafe code guidelines for those not versed in Nico's brand of acronyms. We all have each have our own one. An async function which isn't send but should be. I think this is the thing I just talked about, isn't it?
It is the thing you just talked about.
And so I feel like there's more than one instance of this bug also, which
there are several versions of this.
Let's call it.
That are slightly different. Something is in a different position than you would expect.
Over approximated captures is what I'm going to
This
call
one
it.
in particular, though. Yeah, I guess.
It's not really a category. That's like.
I'm not actually convinced that this one is actually an instance of this, though. Like, I think this one actually should not compile. I feel like we should maybe close this as won't fix.
This particular example I'm looking at right here.
Correct. This particular example seems won't fix to me.
I didn't look closely at it. That's because
non-send struck on the stack at the time that an await is occurring. Like, obviously, a better would be nice, but like,
it's kind of in between. I think there's some variance on this that it's. I know why you're saying it. You're saying it's in scope, and I think that's reasonable. On the other hand, like, non-lexical lifetime certainly considers stuff like whether you have drop, and in other words, if this held onto a borrow, the borrow would be, you could invalidate the borrow at the point of await. So there's a consistency argument to be made. And I think certainly if you added a drop, that's just in some sense further, like, that's a specific fix many people have said they tried, and a few have connected it to non-lexical lifetime saying, oh, it works with NLL. So I think I would like to have it compiled, but but it's on the border.
There's sort of two layers in this. There's things that over approximate and don't correctly talk about things that don't wind up in the generator state. This one actually does wind up in the generator state. So this is like an even layer further, right, of like taking additional things out of the generator state.
I see. Okay. So you're saying
most of the non-send issues are of the form something winds up in, like, we think something's in the generator state, but it actually isn't, right?
Yeah. I see. So though even my phrasing of over approximated implies that.
Right. This isn't over approximating what's in the generator. The generator is just storing too much stuff.
So there's
more
like
than
over capture, and a particular variation of that is over approximation, where the static or the like pre-mirror analysis determines that we will capture, but we do not. And then there's we do capture. I don't know. There's over capture is the more general version, I guess, where the mirror actually does capture, but needs not, but shouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Indeed, that is a slightly different.
And that one's a little hard in terms of its interaction with UCG, because you start having to categorize things like if you turn something into a raw pointer, like a reference to something into a raw pointer, how long can you expect that raw pointer to be valid to access that members of that type? So
I mean,
sort of, it turns into, today what we do is if you just ever take a reference to the type, it's assumed to leak.
So that's an interesting. Okay.
But there's a bunch of variants on this question, because this all came up when Tyler was trying to do his optimizations, right?
Yeah, right. He and I were discussing that. So there's UCG interactions. There's like the, of course, number 63818. But then there's also what you're saying here is it brings into relief, let's say, I mean, the same question arises outside of a future of futures, but if you make a raw pointer to a local variable, then move from that. It's kind of the lifetime of underlying.
The question is when can we get rid of a variable before its scope has ended, before its lexical scope has ended?
Right. So if you make a raw pointer and then move from that variable, can the raw pointer still be used, and so on? And that's definitely a UCG question. I think the answer should be no, but it requires a decision. Okay.
Well, but it's not even like it's not even moved from that local. Like if you imagine a slight modification on the issue that's happening here, where we call the function with a reference to non-send.
Yeah, you're right. There's also the question of what if the variable is dead but not moved from. Right. So in that case, what you're saying here is, now I start to understand better your point. You're saying if I had taken the address of non-send and coerced it to a raw pointer, it might appear to be dead, but I might still be using the raw pointer. And
correct.
Therefore, if I eliminated the stack slot, the raw pointer would be invalid. And that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a very good point. I hadn't really thought about that all the way through. Pain in the ass, definitely not a short-term thing. So this means this is a UCG bug, but we do think there are some short-term things we can do in the meantime to improve people's experience regardless.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in general, like there is sort of a more macro issue here, right? Which is that, like, diagnostics wise, the fact that the error that you get here is at use site of the future, and it tells you that you can't send a pointer between threads safely is suboptimal.
Yeah, so we talked about that, like back the question of should things be sent by default, right? And you brought up that maybe we can improve the diagnostics. Maybe that's something worth looking into. How hard is
that? That was on that thread. Whereas, like, if we can actually like point, like, you know, similarly to how we point at like locations of field definitions, can we point at like where the local is?
So let's call it late diagnostics or error at point of use. And so the idea is like when a future is not send but must be, can we point into the source of the future and not just at the site of use?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm kind of assuming I'll do a second pass and try to fix up the actual issues and once we have this paper document more complete.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good.
Okay, inline attribute on AsyncFN doesn't work properly.
I don't even know what that should do.
Yeah, I
What
guess
does inline? I guess
my
yeah.
expectation would be it's not very meaningful. We could just error, like we
I
have
mean,
time
you
still.
could
Just make this an error.
inline. You could put it as an in. You could move the inline to the future resume impl,
You
but
could.
that doesn't really
That doesn't
make
make any
sense.
sense. Yeah.
Like
What should inline
like
mean?
the poll impl.
Yeah, I think my expectation would be that it inlines the creation of the future, which honestly I sort of expect to always like. We probably should mark all of those functions inline always because they just make a struct, right? That's all they do.
Yeah.
Capture the arguments. So there's really no reason
But
not to inline them.
okay, so what I was thinking about this is that it would do something a little bit more nefarious, right? And like actually inline, like mark the trait like poll method as inline.
Yeah, you mean in the sort of in the impl, so to speak.
You could even additionally imagine, like our compiler isn't smart enough to do this today, but you could imagine that it would cause the actual generator state to be inlined into a new set of variants in the parent.
You could. I feel like we could just make inline an error, and we would be probably just fine
Yeah.
for now until there's some meaning we intend that we think is useful. I especially inline always, which I mean I always view inline as a hint anyway, but inline always has like a feeling of something you can rely on, even if you can't really. Like I'm
I
sure I've
mean,
written code in the past.
yeah, I feel like I would be down for just making this an error for now.
Yeah, I think we should make it an error. We don't have a sensible semantics for it, and we might mislead people into thinking there is one.
Nemo has a good comment here too that is pointing out like what should happen if you put inline always on an async block, which is sort of like, can you put inline always on a closure?
Yeah.
Like what does that do?
You can. I don't know if you can put it on a closure, but I feel like that has a more sensible and obvious semantics uh, than this.
It has a more obvious semantics, but still I'm kind of like, that's weird.
Right. Okay. So good.
Do you also want to mark all the functions as always being inlined, the constructors?
I think we should.
Cool.
If we don't already. Probably LVM will inline them regardless, though, but nonetheless. Yeah. Mark async constructors as inline. I wouldn't mark them as inline always, but just inline.
Yeah, just inline.
That's probably more. There's plenty of hint. Okay, include type parameters on string representation of impl trait. This is, I think, a diagnostic issue. It's got somebody assigned to it.
Oh, this is just saying that it says impl future rather than impl future output equals.
Yeah, it's just one that seems fine. Like a miscellaneous diagnostics.
It looks like somebody's already saying that they're gonna.
Yeah, someone's working on it. It seems good. It doesn't seem super burning, but Esteban had some thoughts on this, which there was some on Zulip, but he talked to me a little bit about it as well, about future diagnostics in general.
Yeah, I mean, this is also an issue for like iterator today, and it's annoying, right? Like,
right. I think what he was suggesting, which I think is a good idea, was trying to come up with some like common. Basically, there's a lot of cases where we currently kind of leak the desugaring, maybe more than we have to, and try essentially walking through some initial examples, making some deliberate mistakes like pass an argument of the wrong type or forget the await, look at the errors, see what we can do about those scenarios. I think it's a great idea if someone has time and energy. That's the question mark. But
so the next one on this list is actually a tracking issue for two methods that got added to libstd.
Okay.
I don't know how we should categorize this differently because I feel like this shouldn't appear on this list.
Yeah, so, well, yeah. This is like a tracking issue for some convenience methods.
That have already been implemented and like have no reason, like.
Yeah, so
They're obvious.
I don't know how to track it either, but okay, we'll leave it at that. Maybe it doesn't belong on this list at all. More of a miscellaneous addition. It's the problem with these area categories. There are things like, yes, it is sort of async await, but maybe this just isn't async await in this particular case. But it's just a method on the poll type. Cannot infer type when using question mark in async block plus bad diagnostic.
Yeah, I mean, so this one's just annoying as heck because the workaround is actually annoying as heck, which is that you turbofish okay at the end of the block.
This is sort of the thing you were talking about, isn't it?
It is not, actually.
Oh, I see. The workaround is you have to like give an explicit type to.
Correct. And it's just, I mean, I do it all the time, and it's annoying, but it's, I don't know.
Same and agree, it's annoying.
Like this is one, I thought we were going to have this fixed with, one of the things I thought we could do to fix this was like making it so that you could syntactically specify the output type, but that was sort of caught up in like what is happening with
Try blocks.
Yeah, try blocks, and then also whatever they're called. Type the colon thing. Oh my gosh, words not
Type description.
Today. Thank you. Yes, type description.
I have a quick question. Do you all see a notification on the thing I'm sharing right now?
No.
Do I see a notification?
Okay. I just got a notification, and I was curious if you could see it, and it was therefore part of the recording, or if I'm guessing that answer is no, since you would have seen it. That's good, because I hate having to scrub those out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of annoying because it's a problem that is caught up in a lot of other things. But the same problem occurs with try blocks and drives me absolutely crazy in the cases where
it's real annoying.
But in this particular instance, I guess you also can't like. I think the same is true in try blocks actually, but you can't put the like let fut colon. You can't sort of.
You can in try blocks do that. You can do let fut colon result, and then specify the okay and error type there. Here you cannot do that. And in fact, people try and do that, and they write like impl future output equals whatever, and it doesn't work because we don't allow it straight there.
Yeah, and even if we did, we'd have a lot of. It's a fairly indirect path in the compiler. I would
yes, it is in fact quite indirect.
Yeah. Okay. Inference. Okay.
So
I'm going to categorize that as an annoying inference and failure. Annoying and complex.
I mean, it's not even like an inference. Like we don't want to fix the inference here. We just want to make there be a not annoying way to specify the error type.
Oh, I see.
Don't we?
Yeah, you're correct. Well, there is really no. It actually can't be inferred.
Like there's no correct path to inferring things here. I guess if we found that all the error types were the same, we could just pick that one. But like that's very heuristic-y.
Right. We don't know. Right. There's actually not enough. The problem is the into impl, basically saying
right.
Whatever this returns, it's not necessarily the same as the actual return type. The actual return type is something that this can be into, which.
Right. So I don't consider this an inference bug. I consider this primarily a diagnostics bug and secondarily a language design bug for specifying the return type more easily here.
This isn't really an inference failure or it isn't necessarily an inference failure. The question mark yields up the original code snippet is somewhat underspecified. in that the question mark, in that the return type of the async block can be any error type E that the error value can be into. What's needed is probably a syntax to conveniently specify the error type, and B, a diagnostic that suggests said syntax. Currently, we kind of lack a syntax, and we could, in principle.
I mean, it would be nice if we could say like cannot infer type and then point at the OK variant, or like anything that's like just a return or something like that.
Yeah, another option.
It's very heuristic.
I mean, I don't think these are all that useful, but sometimes they are. Like, plausibly, if we could detect the situation, we could at least give an extended error description that kind of gives an example. Like, it might probably be kind of hard for us to find the OK and make us.
I mean, how about if we just worded it something like question mark in async blocks requires explicit annotation of error type on OK return value. I don't know. Like, I think you see where I'm going with this, right? Like, you give something that's like really specialized just so that people can be like, oh, I know exactly where I'm supposed to go to find out more about this.
Yeah. Plausibly. I guess the main question is that something we think, it sounds like this is something people will hit. This might be worth trying to take some action on.
Yeah.
Even if it's just.
I mean, I hit this all, like, I hit this and people that I work with hit this all the time. They know what the workaround is by now, but like, it's really annoying.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this as, we should do something. The absolute minimum would be we should list it in the workarounds you should know and love. That's what the name of that section should be, by the way.
And definitely stop telling you to try and consider giving Fute an explicit type, because that is a nonsense suggestion.
I want to rename surprisingly hard things to workarounds you should know and love, by the way. That's my
Ooh, actually, I like that. That's a better name.
It's a better name. Okay. I'm gonna file that for later. Async book. I'll just throw it in this paper. Nico's random idea, good enough. That's a good section for it. Workarounds you should know and love. Or there's some book title I'm like half, or movie or something. I have to look up and figure out which one it is. Okay. Like how I learned to love the atomic bomb or something. Unhelpful error message with async usage of iterator.
It's sorry, riffing on the previous one. We already put atomics in reactors, so.
Nico,
what?
It's Dr. Strangelove. How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Yeah, that's the one. I was thinking there was a closer one. But... Oh, now I understand what you said, Yash. I was like, what are you talking about? Atomic.
Sorry.
There's nothing to do with this bug. I felt like I just was like totally missing the point of this.
All right.
Okay, enough on atomic bombs.
Async usage of iterator. Yeah, so this is in a class of. Oh, wait. Iterator is not general enough.
So
I actually don't think I've ever seen this. What?
Okay, that's just the name of the book altogether. Future Strangelove. It's much better than the async book. Come on. Okay, so What is happening?
Futures dot for each. So they're creating a futures stream iter out of lines, and then for eaching over all of them just to. I write collect to do that, but I see what's happening there. They're getting an error.
I see.
Box.
That's a beautiful bit of code. For each empty block dot await. Okay. They're getting
Std iterator would have to be implemented for the type lines.
this is some kind of for all bug. Like
I think what actually is happening is that we're preferring the wrong boxed function. No, I take that back. I have no idea what's happening here.
Let's see if anybody else does. Nope. Okay. So this seems like a low priority diagnostic fail,
but why?
Maybe this is more of a needs investigation even.
Well, I'm confused because why is the error when they're getting boxed and they're getting an error about iterator? At that point, that outer function shouldn't even know. It has to be a send and sync thing, right? Because boxed is requiring send.
It could be coming out of some.
Maybe there's a send bound somewhere that requires that a child implement iterator.
Yeah, something like that. Sounds plausible.
Some weird like send bound that isn't implied by like WF bounds.
That sounds quite plausible. Or like it is implied, but we were just screwing it up somewhere along the way.
Yeah. So clearly like back propagated an error through a few too many.
This is more needs investigation. It's not really a diagnostic bug, at least not that we know of. Like probably maybe shouldn't error in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that there's just like a trait impl somewhere that needs a bound removed. But
maybe that's plausible.
Just nobody.
And it may also be it's in Tokyo's. Well, I don't know. Actually, no, it's not really in Tokyo. It's in this stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. That helps. Okie dokie. We're not going to
impl
these bugs.
The impl thing that's missing on std lines, which is weird.
Feel free to leave some notes in the bug, by the way. Confusing error message with type unification of impl traits. Oh dear God. Took a colleague to explain to me. Oh, this.
Yeah.
Thing. So this is probably worth trying. Well, so the error here is the fact that two impl traits are actually distinct types.
Yeah, I mean, this also isn't specific to async await, right? This is just,
no,
and we do say like expected opaque type found different opaque type is the current error message that we give.
Something like that.
I mean, that is actually what it is. It's literally expected opaque type found a different opaque type. I feel like one thing that we could do is we could fix the whole diagnostic where it says expected type impl foo found type impl foo. We could just get rid of that and said like found two different impl foos or something.
Yeah, there's some helpful back and forth here on the bug too.
Yeah.
This may be this seems like the kind of smallish thing though that may be worth doing. I can't imagine this coming up fairly regularly. But.
Yeah, I mean, it also is like, depending on what the fix is, it's pretty trivial, right?
Right.
You just look like, hey, are like the two strings of these types the same? Because if they are, like, maybe we should give you a different error message that actually makes it not repeat the same unhelpful information.
We have some logic, as you said already. Maybe it's just, I forget exactly where that logic fires, but maybe we can tweak it. Like the thing that makes it say found a different, because we've had this problem before.
Yep.
Try invoking the function hint.
This one actually started off as not really an async bug, and it's just sort of Oh, there's a PR for this. We're good.
Yeah, okay. I do think this scenario, not this exact snippet here, but probably one that will come later if I keep scrolling, is worth looking at. But there's also the
AsyncFN does not compile if lifetimes does not appear in bounds sometimes.
Oh, I looked into this.
Yeah, this seems related to.
You can see my thing below. This is actually a. Did I look into this? Am I remembering correctly? Oh yeah, I did. So what did I decide? Oh,
You marked it as deferred because you thought that making the region inference algorithm improved going forward would be a forwards compatible change.
right. So this came down to like, if you look at the constraints, there aren't really enough. We currently have a rule, as you recall, Taylor, I'm sure, that we sort of pick. In some cases, we do arbitrarily pick things, but we like to pick the smallest one. In this particular case, what we would have to pick is like the biggest one. Maybe we can make a rule a little more arbitrary than it already is, but that would be maybe okay, but also maybe not. I don't know. I think this is not something we're going to try to fix for beta, probably.
No, and it's also like tricksy, right? And could potentially block us in the future.
Yeah, there's something like, especially because picking static like can influence what traits are implemented, kind of in a more ready way than other choices. I don't know what do we call this? Tricky weird inference corner case. I'll come back to it. I want to try to push through as many of these as we can. Lifetime is unnecessarily captured in nested function returning infiltrate via async. Is this?
This is probably won't fix.
Oh no!
Without it.
I think this is actually a duplicate of another problem, which is which I cited down here. So I think you're familiar with, Taylor.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, where you declare that it lives a certain bound, but we don't believe you, basically. And I think we can fix that. But
yeah, I mean, you have a big long post there,
right,
about it in January.
Probably we should close it as a duplicate and move for the time being, but doesn't strike me as a high beta priority. But I don't know. It's not something like that rings bells for either of you of like, oh yeah, I hit this all the time.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly imagine writing code that would hit this, but
right. I don't know how to categorize some of these things.
All right. So the next one.
Oh, this is again a tricky, weird inference corner case. Basically, not really, but sort of. What's the next one?
Yeah. AsyncFN doubles argument size. I mean, Tyler, I think, is assigned. Tyler's not assigned to this. Tyler was potentially interested in working on this, but is doing other things now with his time at work, so is not actively pursuing this.
So this is runtime performance. This seems, do you have an estimate of how easy or hard it is? My estimate is to try for beta, but.
I don't know how much time it would take for someone familiar with the code, but I think there are only like 2 or 3 people who have enough knowledge of what's going on here to actually implement it.
Yeah, so not a great starter issue.
So like if Tyler or like Eddie or maybe like Zoxy went to go fix this, they could probably do it in a week, but that's like, takes a week from one of those.
Okay, yeah, like a week of Eddie B time is like hard. It's a hard bug.
Yeah, exactly. Very hard.
Okay. Remove TLS dependency from async await. So I actually am curious about this one. We're not going to do this for the beta, but something we want to do.
Yeah. I mean, this is in sort of a similar thing of like people who are invested can probably fix this in, I don't know, like
Oh,
actively working
this
on
is
this. Like it's hard, right?
yeah, and it's tied to
Generator
like
arguments.
generator stuff.
So I the person who opened this issue is actually a coworker of mine who is had started working on this, um, and he has made it some ways towards having generator arguments, but you know, not. I wouldn't expect that it would land anytime soon.
Okay. I feel like I don't feel the categories yet don't feel like they're leaping out to me. It's okay, keep moving.
Okay,
Reprinting support for Rust generators.
this would be nice.
What is this? Oh, this is like in the GDB.
Yep.
This is definitely a nice to have. Maybe worth it for beta if we could find someone. But
Yeah.
seems like the kind of thing where, I don't know, maybe I believe too much in Twitter or something, but tweeting about this could like pull some random person out of the woodwork who's like, oh.
Yeah, some random person who knows a lot about like GDB's pretty printing support.
Yeah, like those people must exist.
They do exist.
They're just not me. There is somebody who's been like re-hacking on that stuff. Maybe I can ping them specifically. I think I said this the last time we looked at that bug. Okay, is this the same thing?
I don't know
It's like
what
the same.
actually sent with this error
I
message.
think this is a diagnostics complaint about using question mark in an async move block. It seems like a dupe of the other one.
But it's not even like. Yeah, I mean, you'd get the same error as this if you tried to do the same thing in a closure, right?
I think it's just I'm
Me
pretty sure this
opens.
is a dupe of whatever that one was.
But I don't think it. I don't think it is, right? Because if you look at it, it's not returning an OK. It's
Oh, I see.
returning like.
This is a case where question mark doesn't even make sense. Is your point?
Right. So I'm trying this in Playground so I can see what it does on a closure. Yeah, we give this exact same error message on a closure, so I feel like I just kind of want to fix this /
Well, it's not really an
Here,
async bug.
I'm gonna leave a comment.
I think it'd be okay to close it or like mark it as a dupe of some bug about closures. But, I mean, it's definitely not an ideal error, but it's not even that. I guess the bug might be saying in a function, if we said cannot be used in an async block, or can only be used in an async block and not a function, that would be less.
Yeah, I mean that's what Esteban's comment here is. We could fix it as a rewording. Cannot use question mark operator in function or async block that returns integer.
That would be like super easy, not especially tailored, but better than nothing. I think that's maybe worth doing. So I'm a little bit not super thrilled about making all error messages more confusing in order to fix this one. What happened to my list?
I mean, I would imagine we would do something at least moderately smart and like remember whether we're inside an async block, and then rather than saying function or async block everywhere, we would say whichever one we were in.
Right. That actually might be mildly hard because of I forget how this stuff is implemented, but
I kind of want to. So this next issue is about async closures. I kind of want to just like close all issues related to async closures and mark them as like un-RFC'd because
it's plausible.
They're like everything about them is completely broken right now. they do all of the wrong things.
So let's list like I'm not totally against. If nothing else, we should like segregate them thoroughly into their own issue list, plausibly just close them. But
yeah. So currently they're tagged with F async closures, I guess. I see.
But I mean, I think closing will get some pushback of like, well, when we do figure out, we're going to probably begin with what we have, and there's bugs that we could know about, but we won't. But I don't know. Okay, tracking issue. That's not very exciting. Mutually recursive async functions are hard to make send. This is the one.
This is mine. This is another. This is one of the we overestimate ones.
Yeah. I still find that
And it's a
very
particularly
weird.
annoying case because it actually puts you to the point where you have to pull the code out into like a separate function, which is quite silly.
Yeah, it does seem like on the list of hard problems or hardish problems, that's one I would like to read. No, it seems like this increased test coverage we can kind of just close now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is done. I mean, there's no point in keeping this open at this point. This is as done as it is. This issue has served, outlived has served purpose. I'm going to close. I'll put it this way. I don't see it being open as, I'll just close it. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, I'll go write some tests because there's an issue that's marked deferred.
Right.
Inherent async function. Oh, didn't we? Oh, we like kind of worked around this in some sense. And it's not really specific to async awaiting.
Yeah. This is the one that now produces an error.
Yeah. So this is like infiltrate detail. We introduced errors for the annoying cases. We probably should fix it better. I don't put a lot of priority on that. Else. Yeah, okay. Okay. I think I gotta run, but let's leave it here because I'm supposed to go.
Okay. Well, cool. You're working through this with me.
Cool. We'll go. We'll pick up where we left off another time, I guess.
Sounds good.
So far, I feel well. Whatever. I feel pretty good. We didn't find. It didn't feel like we found a whole ton of. Oh my God, we got to do this thing. But
we didn't get though to the because we were only looking through the deferred list. We didn't get to talking about that one. Lifetimes of temporaries. Probably we'll talk about that in the Ling meeting tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The data weight thing. Yeah. But I think the.
Well, because I remember, so Matthew had the suggestion to use a match to like capture the future, which was interesting. So just change the desugaring.
It's the usual fix to these things. They have slightly different lifetime behavior, but all right.
Sort of.
So I got a 3 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
2:59.
All right.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
See ya.